So I'm gonna make butter chicken. This is an Indian dish. I think it may be from New Delhi. This is some chopped shallots and garlic. I've got my chicken already marinated. It's been marinated in a wonderful combination of yogurt and smoked paprika, coriander that I ground up myself, and some ginger, some garlic, some salt, and fenugreek leaves, and juice of a lime, some cardamom, and a tiny bit of rose water. You can get rose water in any Armenian store. And I'm gonna make a sauce out of the shallots and the garlic and some tomatoes. Now I am gonna use my homemade tomato puree, but because I had a huge harvest of tomatoes this year. But you can use any kind of canned tomato you want. I mean, as long as it's just tomato and salt. You can also use raw tomatoes. You just need more because they're going to cook down. And later I'm going to make naan bread to go with this meal. Anyway, and I have some more spices for my sauce as well. Paprika, coriander, and cardamom. So I melted butter in a pot. I added the shallot and the garlic, cooked it for a few seconds. Then I added the spices, and I'm going to stir that around until it starts to smell really fragrant. It'll only be moments. And then I'm going to add in the tomatoes. Okay, so I've added the tomatoes and a little bit of cream, and I've pureed the sauce. And we're ready to put the chicken in it as soon as the chicken's done broiling. And it's in the broiler right now. And we're going to get it charred. We actually want this kind of charred, blackened at the corners. But it doesn't have to cook through because it's going to finish cooking through in the sauce. Okay, so this is my broiled chicken. I want to mention also, this is chicken, boneless, skinless, thigh meat. I forgot to mention that. This is, I didn't really get the amount of char that I wanted on my chicken. So I'm going to bust out my blowtorch and just touch it up a little bit. Because I think that char is a big part of the flavor. But I don't want to dry my chicken out by leaving it in the broiler too long. I'm just going to give it a little bit of color. This is what I like to refer to as unconventional use of the torch. And it is kind of my jam. Okay. That's good. Now, having done that with the torch, I'm now ready to put my chicken into the sauce. Okay, so I put some yeast, a little bit of sugar, and some warmish, slightly warm water in there. I like to add a little bit of sourdough starter to pretty much all my breads. I think it just helps add flavor. This is not a particularly active starter. I fed it like 2 days ago, so it's actually kind of dormant. It's just there for flavor. And we're gonna put in some Greek yogurt. This is 80 grams of Greek yogurt. Pop that in there. And then we're gonna let the yeast is already dissolved because it was very fine instant yeast. So I'm not even gonna wait. I'm gonna go ahead and put in the flour. And this is 420 grams of all-purpose flour. I'm not using bread flour for this because this is a very tender bread, and I don't want to overwork it and make it too stretchy. I don't want to develop too much gluten in it. We are going to develop what gluten there is in here. So I'm going to use this in my kitchen. I'm just going to put the bowl on the mixer, stir it together, and what I like to do is I'm going to stir it and just combine the ingredients properly. I'm going to let it rest. This step is known as the autolyse. Once you get your ingredients combined, not necessarily perfectly smoothly, just combined, you will then rest it for 15-20 minutes and that helps kind of get everything settled in, get it all together, and also actually helps line up the gluten. So I'm turning this on. I'm going to get it combined. Okay, it's combined. It's not perfectly smooth, but it's combined, and we're happy. Now, there are 3 further ingredients that I'm going to add to this, and they are, I'm going to press some garlic, I'm going to add the salt, and I'm going to add some olive oil. But we're going to wait until after the autolyse to do that part. Okay, so it's been 15 minutes. I'm going to put the salt in. And I'm going to put some olive oil in. I'm not going to measure it. It's a tablespoon and a half. I'm just going to gluck a little bit because I feel like I got a handle on how much. And I mean, it's not going to really matter that much to the texture of the dough. A little more, a little less. I'm going to press in some garlic. In this case, I do want to press it because I don't want chunks of it in the dough. I want it to just kind of permeate the dough. So normally I would probably chop the garlic and do a fine mince, but this is going to be quick and easy, and this dough recipe is so fast and so delicious. I just want to keep it super simple. Okay, I put in the garlic, I put in the olive oil, and I put in the salt. I'm going to knead it now. The recipe called for 1 clove of garlic, and I put in 4. But then, you know, you measure garlic with your heart. So I'm now going to knead it and get it into a nice smooth dough. Now you can see that the dough is stretching in such a way that it's kind of pulling in strands. You can see the gluten is developed in this dough. So we're done. Okay, our naan dough is looking great. It's a smooth, beautiful dough, really soft. A soft dough with a high hydration is excellent for this kind of thing where you want to stretch a dough out. It's perfect for pizzas, and generally speaking, you should always try and aim with your breads to add as little flour as you need to make a cohesive dough. It's usually the best thing to do. So now I'm going to get my hands a little floury, just a tiny bit of flour on my fingers, and I'm going to give it a quick fold. This is called giving the bread a turn, and it always helps to develop your gluten and to it'll make the bread puffier when you're done. Next, I'm going to cut it. Wash my hands. So next I'm going to cut the dough. I want to make 6 loaves of naan bread, so I'm going to cut it into 6 pieces. Again, if you're working in a bakery or a restaurant, you would probably want to weigh out your pieces of dough. This is for my family. I'm not worried about who gets a bigger naan. So I'm just going to eyeball it and cut it into 6 roughly equal pieces. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to form each one of those into a ball. I'm going to put it on a baking sheet, a half sheet pan, and I'm going to wait for dinner time. So I don't need to shape them and bake them yet because I want these to be fresh out of the oven when we have dinner. But what will happen when I do that is, first I'm going to demonstrate how you can fold the dough. A little bit of flour, not too much flour because it won't stick to itself if you've got too much flour on it. Just fold it into a lovely, loose, soft ball. It's kind of this folding thing. I do this with pizza dough as well. It just folds together and then you kind of pinch it at the bottom so that it doesn't have a hole. And now my fingers are sticky, so. And then I'm going to put it on a sheet pan with a little bit of flour tossed onto it and await dinner. And this is what all 6 of them are going to go on this sheet pan, and then I'll stretch them out, put them in the oven, and we'll have naan. So here are all of my naan breads, my naan loaves. They're shaped into their little balls, and when it's time for dinner, I'm going to pull them out of the refrigerator, and one at a time I'll stretch them out into a nice shape. You can use a rolling pin. I don't usually find that I need to because this dough is really, really soft. And I'm sprinkling them with flour so that they don't stick to the plastic bag that I'm going to put them in. And so these are going to go into the refrigerator until my oven is hot, and until it's dinner time and my oven is hot and ready for them. You can also cook them in a cast iron skillet, but I think I'll do it on the pizza stone today. That's it. Okay, so we now have our naan breads, and I'm going to take them out of the pan. Out of the bag, sorry. And then I'm going to stretch each one and put it into a skillet. So I have this skillet here heating up. I have a lid on it. It's a beautiful, huge cast iron skillet that I love. So what we're gonna do is see how to stretch them. I'll take a little bit of flour. I'm going to pick up a dough. Here. This is cold dough. It's been sitting for several hours. And it's very relaxed and lovely. And I'm just going to kind of stretch it out into a naan bread shape. Just do this with your fingers. And I am not Indian, but I feel like a naan bread shape is kind of a slap it on the side of the tandoor oven sort of shape. And so I think an oblong, lovely thing like that should work perfectly. So I'm going to do that with all of them, and then I'm going to smack them into the skillet. And the skillet is hot already and has a little skim of oil on it. So we'll go back to that in a minute. So here are the two naans, the first two naans, and they're in their skillet and they're cooking. And what we're looking for here is we're looking for the bread to bubble up, and then we'll flip them. So we're just waiting. I have flipped them around to reverse their position in the pan, and actually I'm probably going to just do it like this. This is the way to do it. But and I did decide to cook them in the skillet because and I've never cooked a naan this way. I've always cooked it in the oven. But I did decide to do this because it's hot and I don't want to heat up my whole house with the oven on. And this looks like it's working really well. So I'm really happy with this. This naan looks like it's going to be super delicious. So here we have our butter chicken, some rice, brown rice that I cooked up, and the naan bread. I put half a loaf on this plate, and there's another half a loaf waiting for him to eat.